This is my Kawasaki ZX-10 from 1989, and in the last video I got it running for the first time in about 10 years. I've got a little bit more work to do before I can actually get it back on the road and through its MOT, and that mainly revolves around the brakes. They are seized, so I'm going to take the calipers off, replace the seals, clean them up and get them refurbished, both the front calipers and the rear caliper. Once I've got the brakes sorted out, I'm going to give it a service. So I'm going to drain the oil, replace the oil filter, put fresh oil in and give it a new air filter as well. There's also a small leak that I need to sort out. I believe it to be clutch fluid, but I'm not 100% sure. So I need to look at that as well. Let's get it in the workshop. To get the brake caliper off the front, it's pretty simple. Undo these two bolts and disconnect the brake line here, and then you can get it on the bench and start working on it. So here we go. You should have by now made a sufficient mess with brake fluid everywhere. So first things first, we've got to, if we can, squeeze that back in that way. That will allow us to remove this pad, like that. And then that one will come out as well. This particular design has got inserts inside these pistons. Now, I think the brakes I did on my GPZ and FZR are supposed to have those in. However, they didn't. These, however, seem to be complete and very original. They've probably been refurbished at some point, given that they're 37-ish years old. But they actually look pretty good. You can see all this like corrosion around here, which I need to get rid of. And they're just generally a bit dirty, so let's pop this metal plate up and out the way, like so. And this carrier will now, hopefully, come out relatively easy. Now you can see this copper grease on here has gone a bit minging because it's super old, but I'll put some new grease in there before we put it back together. Get this rubber slider out as well. I'm just going to spray a little bit of penetrating fluid down there just so that it slides out a bit easier and is less likely to tear. There we go. To remove the pistons, I invested in this very cool kit. I got it from eBay. I can't remember how much it was. It wasn't crazy money. It was actually pretty cheap. If I remember, I'll put a link to it in the description. If I've forgotten to do that, then just stick a comment in the comment section reminding me to put the link in the description. Anyway, the basic gist of it is that you take one of these expanding things, put it on there, put that on there, put that on there. Right, so when you tighten that, these things expand and expand into the piston, and then you can either wriggle it, or it comes with a slide hammer that you screw in there, and you can pull the pistons out like that. First things first, I need to remove these inserts. Get a little bit of penetrating fluid in there. So I use this stuff, WD-40 Specialist Penetrant. There's loads of others on the market and loads of other options that everyone has their preference. I like that stuff because it's nice and easy and I can get it quickly from Halfords when I run out. Right, now let's see if we can... Ugh, not a chance. So these have a cross in them. Maybe I can get a decent sized flathead screwdriver in there. Right, as you can see, you can just about get a grip on the edge of it, enough to wriggle it and hopefully free it. Now, sadly, as you can see, I've damaged this one slightly, but I've got to get them out, so I don't really have a choice. There's probably a special tool for this, but I don't have it. Okay, so perseverance and carefulness and you can get it out. That's all it is. It's just like a little bung that goes in there to, I guess, press against the back of the brake pad rather than the ring of that pressing against the back of the brake pad. Right, I'm going to try and get this one out off of camera because I think it's going to stress me out a little bit. And then I'll get back to pulling the piston out itself. Okay, I managed to get it out with a bit of, well, brute force and ignorance, really. If you're new to this channel, then you will appreciate the fact, hopefully, that I show you things like this. A lot of people won't show you damages that they do like this from being a complete brute. I basically had to smash a screwdriver into it, and I couldn't get it out. That was the only way I could do it. I will have to replace this. I don't have one at the minute, but I'll put it back in for now once I clean up the caliper and rebuild it. But I will get a new one and fit it at a later date. But I just wanted to show you that, yeah, we're not all perfect. Before I start trying to get these pistons out, what I'm going to do is actually remove this bleed nipple before I accidentally snap it off. I will clean that up before putting it back in. Right, expandy tool. It's worth noting that I have soaked the pistons in some penetrating fluid for a little while now, and I'm hoping that I can wriggle them out. This is actually hard work. Oh look, you can see it is turning. Come on, little piston, you can do it. Oh, oh, why aren't I using the slide hammer? Let's try that. Maybe that'll be a bit more successful. Right, ready? You couldn't see that on camera. I hit my finger between that and that. Owie! Right, I'm sacking off this idea. I'm going back to what I was doing. It seemed to be working better anyway. It's worth noting at this point that I get not a lot of enjoyment from doing brake calipers. Oh, come on, it's nearly there. It's so close. Come on. A little bit more. Okay. Inside there, you can see you've got the main seal, and there's also a dust seal as well to stop, well, to try and prevent grubby stuff from getting inside there. So pop the seals out, give it a good clean, and then assembly is reversal of removal. And what you can do with these is you can get a little bit of Scotch-Brite, other brands available, and just clean them up best you can. You can buy new ones, but 9 times out of 10, these are actually okay to put back in. Basically, just get it as clean as you can. A lot of people put these in an ultrasonic. You can do that as well, but I don't have one, so I won't be doing that. And that's that, basically. There we go. Once we've got our nice rebuilt caliper with new seals back together, we can put it back on the bike, and then basically assembly is reversal of removal. Chuck it back on, put the bolts back in, retighten that, and then we can bleed the brakes. Oh, obviously I've got to do the caliper on the other side and the one on the back as well. Bleeding brakes is pretty easy, and you've seen me do it 1,000 times. Well, that's an exaggeration, but basically stick a bit of tube on here, get your 10mm spanner on there, and basically you squeeze the lever, undo the spanner, let the bubbles come out, tighten the spanner, and then you can release the lever again. And you just do it multiple times until all the air is out of the system. So with quite a bit of time and a lot of perseverance, you should end up with a braking system that works. Happy days. I've just discovered why the rear caliper was so seized, and it's because the dust seals, I've taken the actual piston seal out from this one, but if you look, the dust seals, they're not there. They don't exist. So all sorts of grime and grub was getting in there. Ah, brilliant. At the end of the last video, there was a small pool of something on the floor underneath the bike, and I believe it was coming from the clutch slave cylinder. So although the clutch appears to work all right, I do believe this is leaking. So I'm going to take it off the bike with these 3 bolts here and have a look at the seal on the other side. Okay, with the 3 bolts removed, I'm hoping it will just... Oh, seems to be stuck. Oh, there we go. It's just... Ugh. That doesn't look too good, does it? I'm going to have to clean all up inside there as well. So let's take this cover off as well, just a series of bolts holding that on, and get it on the bench. So that wasn't too tricky to get all the bolts out. However, I'm struggling to maneuver it off. Come on. Ah, there we go. Yeah, that congealedness in there is definitely clutch fluid. So that means the slave cylinder was definitely leaking. So I'm going to need a new seal kit for it, clean that out, and then bleed it, obviously, and hopefully that'll be all good again. Top tip, pop the bolts back in where they came from whilst it's on the bench and you're working on it, because in this particular instance, each one of these 4 bolts that hold it in are different lengths. So I just had to pop it back on the bike to make sure I knew which order the bolts went in. Anyway, right. I made a small mistake by not undoing the hydraulic line fitting before taking it off the bike. So I've had to kind of just pop it back on there so I can actually undo and remove. Oh, that's tight, that line. Okay, I'm going to do this not holding my phone in one hand because I'm going to break something. So yeah, undo that before you remove it all. Maybe you'll do a better job of catching the clutch fluid as well. With the slave cylinder on the bench, I've been able to use my brake caliper removal tool thing. Ah, there we go. We can get that off of there. It doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Just this rubber seal here has failed, so the clutch fluid is just leaking past it. Okay, so I'll fit a new seal kit, and then hopefully this will go back together nice and easily. Before I put the cover back on, I'm going to give it as much of a clean up in here as I can with my trusty toothbrush and some degreaser. Bleeding the clutch is exactly the same as bleeding the brakes, apart from you use the clutch lever instead of the brake lever. So undo your nipple, squeeze your clutch, do your nipple back up, unsqueeze your clutch, and just keep doing that until it's bled. Right, I'm going to do that, and then let's see if this is leaking still. For anyone struggling with this, okay, just so you know, I've spent like half an hour bleeding that, and I've run through an entire pot of brake fluid. What I had to do in the end was literally pump this with it like that. Just keep pumping and pumping and pumping, and all these tiny little air bubbles were coming out of there. And now it's got to the point where only liquid is coming out that tiny little hole. So yeah, just persevere with it, and like I said, if you think you've bled all the air out, just keep pumping the lever and it will push the rest of it out the top. As an added bonus, this is no longer leaking, so I'm having a really good day. Thanks to you guys in the comments, I know that if I undo these 2 bolts here, the grab rail actually goes down and sits flush, like so. That looks way better. Thanks guys. Okay, so I've run the bike up to temperature, and as you can hear, the radiator fan is working, which means the cooling system is working, and it's pumping the water around, the water's getting hot, and the radiator fan is cooling the water down. So that's a win. The only downside is the gauge doesn't appear to be working, so I can only imagine there's 2 sensors on this, one to send information to the gauge and the other to trigger the switch for the radiator fan. But I'll visit that problem another day. At least for now I know it's not going to overheat. So the gauge does work a little bit. If I turn the key on, you can see it goes up from the stop pin to just below that first line, so I don't know if that means anything. Okay, so I don't think I need to remove any fairings to drain the oil and replace the filter on here, because there's the drain plug there and the filter is right next to it there. So that's well, that's going to save me a little job, isn't it? I stand corrected. I've just had a look at the manual and it says remove the drain plugs, so I'm assuming there's another one that I can't get to. It does say remove the lower fairing, so that's got to come off. Looks like just a series of screws and that will be removed quite easily. The manual also says do this on the centre stand. In an interesting turn of events, the front sump plug is just there. This has an aftermarket stainless steel exhaust on it, which blocks that sump plug from being able to undo. I'm not going to go through the pain of removing the exhaust to do this. So what I'm going to do is tip the bike up on end, not obviously too high. I'm going to get my front axle stand, what do you call them? Paddock stand. Lift the front up and put the side stand back down. That way the bike will be tipped up slightly and it will drain the oil towards the rear sump plug, which I can get to. As you can see, the sump plug has got a wire connected to it to stop it from coming undone. Well, to help stop it from coming undone. So I just need to untwiddle that so I can undo that. And I've got my tubs ready to catch the oil. Et voila. I've just realised I might not be able to remove the oil filter because of that exhaust. Well, this is going to be interesting, isn't it? In all fairness, this oil does look pretty clean. I should probably change my tub. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, one tub might suffice. I didn't want to get my phone covered in oil, but I had success. It did come out because I was able to remove the main bolt from inside the filter housing to be able to then get it off in several pieces. Putting it back together might be tricky, but it did come out, so that's a relief. This is the bolt I took out of the sump. It's not the original one. Normally sump plugs have a magnetic bit on the end and they're not usually this long. The thread on this is actually an M12 by 1.75. The standard thread is an M12 by 1.5. So I think, well, let me explain. Sadly, I have hit a massive problem. When I took this aftermarket non-sump plug bolt out, it was covered in silicone sealant. I didn't really think much of it at the time, so I just removed it and then got on with the rest of my life. I've just tried to refit this, and the reason it was covered in silicone sealant is because the threaded hole in the sump is stripped almost completely. What the previous person has tried to do is put a coarser threaded bolt into a finer pitched hole, hoping that it will seal. That's not really how it works. I can't, in good conscience, rebodge that. I can't possibly, in my mind, refit that with silicone sealant, because if the worst thing that can happen is you're riding along and the silicone sealant gets too hot and it fails and this comes out. Then all the oil comes out the engine, and the first thing that comes into contact with that oil is the rear tyre. You're going to crash. I couldn't possibly allow that to possibly happen. So anyway, I'm slowly coming to terms with the fact that I'm going to have to remove the sump to fix this, because I could try and drill it out and re-thread it in situ. However, if I do that, I'm going to get a load of metal shavings inside the engine, and that's a whole other problem that I just don't want to deal with. So I'm going to have to remove loads of stuff to get that sump off. I think probably the exhaust, the radiators, the cooling system, all the oil pipes, the oil cooler. There's a lot of work to do. So I'm going to do that. But not today. So thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry it's a disappointing ending to this video, but if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and I will catch you next time when I will be removing the sump from this bike. Yay! Cheers!